Hello everyone, welcome to another Let's Talk Criterion. In this particular edition I'm going to be featuring some of the recent purchases I made from the collection. Basically I concentrate mainly on the US releases as I have a lot of the UK ones, so the UK sales don't help me out too much in that respect. But I have been getting quite a few US releases in the last week and a half or so, so I want to share those with you. And obviously look at some of the fantastic cover designs and the digibook setups as well. So basically we start with this one. This is a digibook, as you can see. It's a great edition, two films in one package here, Police Story and Police Story 2, Jackie Chan. And this is just lovely. As you can see from the cover artwork, it's really, really impressive. Jaw-dropping set pieces in these films, of course. The first one's certainly better than the second one, the sequel. And of course, he plays Ka Kui, a Hong Kong police inspector whose methods are often unorthodox. Phenomenal Maggie Cheung, of course, a star-making role for her. She plays his much put-upon girlfriend, May. Now, it's packed with tons of features. It's a 4K digital restoration of both movies with monaural soundtracks, but they're alternate surround soundtracks for the surround fans out there in DTS HD Master Audio. You've also got 2K digital transfer for the first time from a subtitled 35-minute Hong Kong release print for Police Story 2. And also you've got interviews with Chan and actor Maggie Cheung. You've got behind the scenes stuff. It's absolutely packed with features. That's Police Story, and that's spine number 971 and 972. Now moving on, I'm going to mention a name, Isaac Dinesen. Now, the other name that you might recognise is Karen Blixen, and the reason why you might recognise that is because Meryl Streep played this author in the famous Oscar-winning film Out of Africa. Babels Feast, directed by Gabriel Axel, basically is an Oscar-winning film, and it's adapted from the story by Isaac Dinesen. It's basically combines earthiness and reverence with an indescribably moving depiction of sensual pleasure. It's basically all revolving around food. And it's become a very, very deeply loved treasure of cinema. It basically is a layered tale of a French housekeeper with a mysterious past who brings a quiet revolution in the form of one exquisite meal to a circle of pious villagers in late 19th century Denmark. Now, this is certainly quite a feast in itself visually. It's not a terribly long movie, but it does actually move slowly, if you know what I mean, but with its storytelling. Again, some great features on this, some interviews with the director and actor Stéphane Audran. You've also got a documentary about Karen Blixen, who's a fascinating storyteller in her own right, who wrote under the pseudonym Isaac Dinesen. Now, I already have the Studio Canal version of this release, but when I saw the extra features that Criterion were providing, I bought the Criterion version as well. And obviously, the extra features are quite impressive. This, of course, is David Lynch's The Elephant Man, the most recent addition to the Criterion Collection of his oeuvre. Basically, a 4K digital restoration with a stereo soundtrack on this. And of course, it tells the story of John Merrick, the Elephant Man, a man who was basically found by Frederick Treves, played by Anthony Hopkins, and brought into a hospital in London to be studied initially, but then there's humanity underneath the surface that Treves finds, and basically he rescues him from his horrible sort of circus keeper, Freddie Jones, brilliantly played by him. And we go through this nightmarish story of his life there in a sort of flashback sequences, but obviously the main crux of the film is his humanity, and absolutely amazingly played by John Hurt. The Elephant Man by David Lynch. Great release, this. So, the next two releases are incidentally films I never owned up until about 2 or 3 days ago, but I'm very pleased I did. I bought them from the Criterion UK sale, the two for £25. They're both by the same director, incidentally, and they are Jabberwocky and The Fisher King. So starting with Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky, of course, Terry Gilliam, featuring Michael Palin in a mainly starring film role. And this is a very interesting film. It was sort of his first proper cinema outing, Terry Gilliam. And then obviously later on down the line we have the brilliant performances from Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams in the fantastic Gilliam epic The Fisher King. So two really, really great movies, both by the same director. I'm a big fan of Gilliam, and of course we have Brazil from Gilliam in the Criterion Collection, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as well. Now moving on to a classic British film from a classic British director, it's Ken Loach's Kes. I've been trying to track this one down for a while, finally found it at the right price, and it's such a good movie. It's basically a gritty sort of British story of a boy who befriends a kestrel, looks after the kestrel, and he's a little bit of a rapscallion, let's say, but this whole kestrel business calms him down and gives him focus in his life. Played by a very young actor at the time, not ever did much after this, to be honest. David Bradley was his name. Some British stalwarts in there as well, for instance, like Colin Welland, of course. The screenplay for the film's by Barry Hines. It's directed by Ken Loach. And it's just a classic cinema favourite. I think it's available on Masters of Cinema as well here in the UK, but this is a Criterion release. And of course, again with Criterion, you pick it up and you get a newly restored digital transfer documentary of Kes, a profile from the South Bank show of Ken Loach from 1993, and you get the early Ken Loach television show Cathy Comes Home, which of course was a groundbreaking show in British television in the 60s, and that's included on this disc as well. That's Kes from Ken Loach. Now, as you probably know from previous videos, I do like Abbas Kiarostami, and yet another title of his in the Criterion Collection. I think maybe I've got them all now. This is Like Someone in Love. Interesting departure for Kiarostami here, of course, because he basically tends to make films in his own country or in his region of where he was brought up. But this one's different. He went to Tokyo to film this one, and basically it's an extraordinary story. It's one of his more straightforward movies, and it's a story of a growing bond between a young student and part-time call girl and a grandfatherly client. Kiarostami, of course, we looked at close-up and certified copy on our last video, but this is again a more modern, up-to-date film from 2012, one of his later releases before his final departure from us. Very sad he's passed away now, unfortunately. I think the last film that came after his death was created by his son, and that, of course, was 24 Frames. I think that was the last Kiarostami release in the Criterion Collection. Then we have Certain Women by Kelly Reichardt. Now this basically is a triptych. It's sort of a triptych. It's adapted from 3 short stories by Mal Malloy and unfolds in self-constrained but interlocking episodes. Now, I was quite intrigued by this because I've not actually ever seen this film before, but the interesting thing is it has Kristen Stewart, Michelle Williams and the wonderful Laura Dern. And I do like Laura Dern, so after having recently watched Laura Dern's initial departure, which came out recently, that Joyce Chopra film, Smooth Talk, I did really want to see some more Laura Dern. Stuff that's not Jurassic Park and her standard stuff. This is actually from 2016, so it's not too far back. But I had never seen it, and certainly never seen her performance in it. So I'm looking forward to watching this. Certain Women, directed by Kelly Reichardt. This is Insignificance. Now, this is a very, very interesting film indeed. He did do some interesting departures in his time, Rogue. And basically, Albert Einstein, Marilyn Monroe, Joe DiMaggio, and Joseph McCarthy all get together in one New York City hotel room. And it's a very compelling and visually inventive adaptation of the Terry Johnson play, which was a big stage hit. Rogue creates a funhouse mirror image of 50s America in order to reflect on the nature of celebrity and Cold War nuclear nightmares. Sounds fascinating. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm very, very intrigued to see it. There's also some video interviews on the disc from Rogan Thomas and the editor Tony Lawson, and a short documentary shot during the making of Insignificance itself. So this is an interesting Criterion title as well. Now, this is one you would not know, that may not know, that's in the Criterion Collection. Certainly took me by surprise. Very commercial for a Criterion film, but here it is. Downhill Racer. Now, this film has got Robert Redford starring in it as David Chapelet, a ruthlessly ambitious skier who's competing for Olympic gold with an underdog American team in Europe. And Gene Hackman's in it as well as the coach who strives to temper his narcissistic drive for glory. Screenplays from the acclaimed novelist James Salter, and I had never heard of this movie before. It's from 1969. And there's also interviews from 2009 with Robert Redford, which should be very interesting, and a 1977 AFI seminar with the director Michael Ritchie. Now, the director Michael Ritchie is not a new name, of course, but this is definitely a film I've never ever come across before, and I thought I have to have this as a blind buy because it's just totally unlike anything else I think in the Criterion Collection in that respect. And that's Downhill Racer, directed by Michael Ritchie. Now, moving on, we have Grey Gardens. Grey Gardens is a documentary, and it's basically little Edie Beale and Big, mother and daughter. They're high society dropouts, and they manage to thrive together amid the disorder of their East Hampton, New York mansion. Now, it does sound a bit out there, doesn't it? Sounds a little bit sort of Kardashian-y, if you know what I mean. But basically, it's a 1976 documentary, and it became a sort of cult classic and established Little Edie as a fashion icon and philosopher queen. It's 94 minutes. It's from 1976, as I say, and it's called Grey Gardens. Certainly one to try out there. That's the UK release, that one, so that's available possibly in the 2 for $25 sale. Now, we have Cold Water. This is by Olivier Assayas, and it's pronounced in French L'eau froide. Basically, it's a deeply felt coming-of-age drama, and it's been a missing link in one of the contemporary cinema's richest bodies of work from this director. Drawing from his own youthful experiences, Assayas revisits the outskirts of Paris in the early 1970s and tells the story of two lovers, Gilles, played by Cyprien Fouquet, and Christine, played by Virginie Ledoyen, whose rebellions against family and society threaten to tear them apart. It's quite an arresting movie in lots of ways, very visually arresting as well. It's very short, it's 95 minutes long. That's Cold Water by Olivier Assayas. There are some other titles by Olivier Assayas also in the Criterion Collection. So I think that brings me to the end of the titles which I've been buying recently. I hope you found that interesting and informative. The next video, as I say, will be concentrating mainly on the new box set from Wong Kar-wai called The World of Wong Kar-wai, and the more recent coming up in the next day or so actually releases in the UK, Defend Your Life and Lost in America. So we're looking forward to seeing those as well. Plus there'll be other titles like Celine and Judy Go Boating, and also Sid and Nancy will be featured, as well as The Philadelphia Story, which I think I mentioned all on the last video. So once again, do keep watching those movies. There's so much to see out there. So exciting. There's so many films to explore. And above all, stay safe.